if you want. I don't have it. Would be nice and solid.
Well, hi everybody, meteorologist Joe Chaffee. Welcome to the Joe Chaffee Weather Show as we are underway here on a very stormy Wednesday night, 16th of October 2019. We've got a major storm moving up the East Coast. It's actually, there are a couple of different low centers in play at the moment, and when you got all this spinning around in the atmosphere, it's usually problematic. In one form or another, thunderstorms. We've had a number of special marine warnings already. The winds have been gusting to over 50 miles an hour along the New Jersey immediate coast. Inland wind gusts right now are only running at about the 20 to 25 mile an hour range, but those inland winds will be picking up once the low goes by to the north. We've had a considerable amount of rain so far, and the rain, it continues to be moderate to heavy. I'm just north of New York City tonight, and I just checked a couple of minutes ago outside, and it was raining very, very hard about 15 minutes ago. It's still raining heavily. It's maybe the intensity is a shade less intense than what it was, but nonetheless, we still have a couple of more hours of work to do with the rain as that is lifting up to the northeast. There's all sorts of warnings and advisories up. Everything has kind of played according to plan from what we were looking at the last couple of days. And now we're going to watch this low really strengthen as it approaches the south shore of Long Island later on this evening, probably close to the midnight hour. So once the rain pushes up north, the wind is going to really start cranking up. It's already the case along the coast. By the way, coastal flood advisories and all sorts of coastal flood warnings up as in and around Long Island and in southern New England. This high tide tonight is the one high tide that we have a concern with that's going on right now from south to north. And then once that plays through, with winds going around to the northwest even before midnight in some places along the New Jersey shore. But once the wind goes around to the northwest, then the tide is no longer an issue. So we're going to start tonight with the surface map. Actually, before I do that, let me just check with you guys on the board. Everybody can hear me okay, I hope. Okay, so I don't see anybody saying they can't hear me, so that's a good thing. All right, so let's get started here. We're going to start with tonight's surface map, where we actually can see where there's at least one low center at the moment, and we'll bring it up here. If you take a look, you can get this, by the way, if you go to weather.gov, weather.gov/PHI, which is the Mount Holly Weather Service website. And on their homepage, there's an access to this tool, the Weather and Hazards Data Viewer. It's really very useful. You've seen me use this here before. So what I've done is I've plotted the temperature, the wind speed, which is what the wind barb is showing, and the highest gusts, those are in red. And at least on the last observation, an hour between 6 and 7 o'clock, there were gusts of 50 miles an hour or more along the central New Jersey coast around Seaside Park up to about Seagirt, and gusts up to 50 at Barnegat. They've come off a little bit off those peaks at the moment. But I also had them plot the sea level pressure, and you can see the numbers in blue. I don't know if they're big enough for you to see, but there's a 992 pressure in southeast Jersey at this particular station that's inland of Atlantic City. Just wanted to see which plot that is. 992 actually is Atlantic City. Millville is at 993.6, and they have a west wind at 20, gusting to 33. Atlantic City, the international airport inland, is straight south at 15, gusting to 25. And then you look up further north, and your winds, you have a few light southeast and east winds. The actual low center is that I can find on this plot. There's at least one low center, and it looks like it's somewhere in this area here, somewhere in this vicinity. We have a surface low in southwestern New Jersey. All the winds back up north and west of there across southeastern Pennsylvania are all coming in from the northwest. and they're running at about 15 with some gusts up into the 20s. We've got northwest and west winds in Delaware. And then if you go up the coast, you've got east and east-southeast winds coming in along the New Jersey coast and working its way inland. So there's some kind of surface low here, and the pressure has dropped about from what it was when I looked at 3 o'clock this afternoon, when there looked like there was some kind of low down near Chesapeake Bay. So we've dropped from about 1,003 millibars down to almost 992, 991. So we've had a 12 millibar drop in the last 4 hours, and we're going to probably have another 15 or so millibars to go, I think, before this is all said and done. I'm thinking this will finish somewhere between 975 and 980 before it's all finished. And going up a little bit further up the coast in terms of the winds is seeing that West Gilgo Beach is 33 gusting to 42 from the east-southeast, 20 to 30 in gusts as you go across Long Island. You've got some 40-mile-an-hour gusts here at the buoy 44065 is 31 gusting to 40. The buoy 44025 is 27 gusting to 31. And just a couple of coastal stations here. So Seagirt, again, they had a gust over 50 about 30, 40 minutes ago. Right now they're 27 gusting to 45 from the south-southeast. And Barnegat Bay is at 29 gusting to 44. So there's some pretty hefty coastal winds going on, and I think those winds are actually going to wind up getting stronger further up the coast in the next couple of hours, particularly over Long Island and over eastern Long Island, and also going to see those winds really pick up strongly in southeastern Connecticut and on up into southern Rhode Island and out near Cape Cod, which and in the on the islands. Martha's Vineyard right now is nothing crazy, 15 to 22, and we've got some 25 mile-an-hour wind gusts out in Nantucket, but come around the midnight hour, and those places are going to be cranking up to 40 or 50 miles an hour, I'm sure. Fascinating way this whole thing is coming out tonight. We can look at this satellite, and by the way, the back edge of the rain is making progress fairly quickly now. It's out of Virginia and Maryland and Delaware, and the rain has ended. We'll see it on the local radars in a bit in southwest Jersey. So this arm is rapidly lifting northward. It was a 6-hour window for rainfall for the most part. About 6 hours. Areas further north, the rain is going to be lasting longer, but on the whole, it's this sort of quick shot. It's like this giant arm is lifting up and around, and you can see it clearly where the surface low, where at least the Great Lakes energy is moving eastward, and very, very impressive here on the tighter view. So we'll show you on the wide. We'll come back to the water vapor in a second, but here it is on the wide view on the U.S. satellite, and you certainly can see that subtropical jet, very active, pushing its way around. The whole jet's getting pulled up and around into New England and wrapping around the upper low that continues to move and strengthen as it moves across the Great Lakes. Very impressive here, by the way, on the water vapor imagery. It really does look impressive to me, this whole setup all day long. Those of you on Patreon saw it earlier today on Weather in 10, which we did at about 3 o'clock. But look at that twist here in that upper feature as it moves eastward. You've got, we're following that southern feeder all along, waiting for it to just kind of wrap up and around, which it is doing. And there's a bit of some mid-level dry air that's getting involved now, and that is moving across the Ohio Valley and heading up through Virginia. There's the back edge of your rain, pretty much, lifting up into southeastern Pennsylvania and into southernmost New Jersey and pushing up to the northeast. I think actually what may wind up happening is once that rain is done, you may wind up seeing some partial clearing of skies for a little while until the upper low swings a little bit further to the east, and then the winds are going to crank up as well. Near the low center, you're going to have those winds all cranked up with the tightening gradient, and then behind it, The other thing to watch out for this evening, which I think it could be a particular problem in southern New England and in southeastern New England, is that low center nears with these, you're still trying to kind of resolve multiple lows. Would not at all be surprised to see some of the thunderstorms as they move up into southern New England and in the interior produce. We might get a couple of severe thunderstorms out of it, maybe even a little bit of rotation. The SPC earlier today, which was kind of behind the curve on this since yesterday, finally played catch up, and they went to a marginal risk of severe weather for Long Island. They actually backed it west almost to about New York City now, so a marginal risk of severe weather for Long Island. Much of Connecticut except the Northwest, all of Rhode Island, and southeastern Massachusetts. And that totally makes sense because that's where we're going to have that really, really tight surface low finally organizing and strengthening. That's where the surface low is going to go, somewhere near Montauk or just southeast of Montauk before it pulls up northward into southern New England. Just an absolutely interesting situation here for sure. Here's the wide radar view. Large area of rain that goes all the way up through upstate New York, except for southwestern New York now. There's moderate to heavy rain everywhere, and there's still some patches of heavy rain down into central New Jersey. Further south, it's done. It poured today in Virginia and parts of North Carolina and Maryland and Delaware. That's all now done and over with as the system has moved to the north. And now, of course, it's going to be southern and central and eventually northern New England that's going to get hammered by all of this in terms of rainfall. Let's pull up a couple of local radars. I'm going to pull up the Upton radar, and we'll take a look and see what's happening here. I mean, you do have that heavy rain from New York City on up into northern New Jersey, over into the Hudson Valley, over Long Island, and it looks like we have a little box there that's popped up. So there are some special marine warnings that are being indicated by Upton, and also some special marine warnings that are up and from Mount Holly. You can also see where the southern edge of this is. 195 southward, it's done. So we're probably going to see that rain ending here around 9 or 10 o'clock. I'm going to switch to the Fort Dix radar. Here it is. And you'll see that we have that southern edge there. It's a little. The Fort Dix radar is actually showing a little bit more in terms of the rain on the southern part of its. The Upton radar kind of loses it a little bit on the southern edge, but the rain shield now somewhere getting closer to 195 and moving on up to the north. Just want to see what the time of that is on the last frame. The time here is 7:03, so it's 10 minutes, 10 minutes old. But heavy rain still happening over Long Island and now into Connecticut. And I think we'll see if I could pull up the Boston radar. And I cannot, so hang on one second. I'm going to have to do it a slightly different way here. Okay, so let's go to BOX. 1X too much. And the Boston radar is down. Try Albany. I think Albany is ENX, if I remember correctly. Yep. And there's the view from Albany in the Hudson Valley with the heavy rain now pushing all the way up north of I-90 and into the Adirondacks and also into southern Vermont and southern New Hampshire, and also starting to clip into Maine. Figures that you want the Boston radar would give you a pretty good view with regards to what's going on in southeastern New England, and we can't seem to get it. Let me see if I can try to get it in another direction. We'll try this way. By the way, you'll notice the wind advisories all over the place. Now, their radar is down. Useful. Let's see if we can at least go to the, do they have a longer range view here? Let's try that. Nope, they're both down. Yeah, everything's down on the Boston radar. Great. Okay, let me go a little further south. Let's see if we can pick up the storm totals from the Upton radar. It's a little early, but we are seeing already as of 7 p.m. The darker green on this is roughly is 1 inch to 1.5 inches. So we already seen 1 to 1.5 inches of rain in some places and counting. And we'll take a look from the Mount Holly perspective. Now their radar scale, and I always forget to ask Bill Goodman about this from the Weather Service. The two radars have two different scales when it comes to the Doppler rain measurements. The Mount Holly, the darker green, is 2 inches. So there have been some 2-inch rain amounts. And again, these are not final totals yet. So we'll just have some. But once we start to get the numbers from the actual recording stations in terms of what's measured, I think that's really what's will tell the tale. Every bit of 1 to 3 inches of rain certainly going to be commonplace here. And as you go further north, probably once you get north of New York City and on up into Connecticut, I'm betting that it's going to be more on the lines of 2 to 3 inches. So your surface plot as of 18Z, 2 o'clock this afternoon, and now we have the 21Z plot, and there's your low in southwest, right in Delaware Bay at 5 p.m. So we notice from the pressure field it's actually a little bit further north than that. But the coastal low is really beginning to take hold and will become the main low center as it winds its way erratically, or there may be a second low that forms just offshore. But eventually you're going to have at least one tight low sitting southeast of Montauk in about 3 or 4 hours, and then moving up into New England. And of course, the reflection of the upper low is that surface low sitting just to the east of northern parts of Lake Huron in Canada, and that surface low eventually will disappear as it all consolidates into one big mess. A number of people, by the way, have pointed out how if this were January, speculating on what would have happened. I think that if this were January, the look would probably be the same as it is now, which to me suggests that coastal areas would be getting the windswept soaking rain that they're getting. Where it might be a little bit different is that there could possibly have been a little more cold air to work with just from climatology. So that could have made for more snow in inland areas. But I would also point out that it is not an impossibility that this would have played out almost the same way with rain for most places, even all the way up, because of the way the upper air is set up. We were talking about the fact that there's been somewhat of a lack of a Canadian connection of bringing colder air into the Northeast. So there's nothing that says that can't happen in December, January, or February, where cold air is cut off and locked up in Canada and not able to move, not able to penetrate into the Northeast or the Mid-Atlantic states. So my guess is it would probably be the event that we'd be seeing would be fairly similar to what we've got now. Maybe on the backside, there would be more backside snows with the upper low in play. That might be where there would be a bit of a bigger difference. But bottom line is, it's Wednesday, October 16th, and not December 16th or January 16th or February 16th. So let's see how this is all going to wind up tonight. And we've got the new GFS, which has got the surface low as of 8 o'clock sitting somewhere east of the central New Jersey coast. It may jump there on the next plot, and then by 2 a.m., the low center is actually north of Hartford in north central Connecticut, right near the Massachusetts state line. And you see the arm of that really heavy rain sweeps up through Boston and on up to Portland, Maine, and goes all the way up into northern Maine. And also some heavy rain that arcs back on the west side of the surface low, and that's through much of upstate northern New York, north of I-90 up to Plattsburgh. And then during the day tomorrow, the low starts to move eastward near Portland. We start to see a bit of, we've reached its peak intensity. And by the way, the gradient gets very tight here. So, here's your low. Once that arm goes by and that wind goes around to the northwest, we're going to see those winds pick up overnight and get pretty strong for tomorrow into tomorrow night. I think we're going to be gusting to 40 miles an hour or more, both inland and along coastal areas. And it may not be until later on Friday before that low moves out of the way. And with the upper air, the way it's playing, We are going to see some improvement here, of course, because everything is moving along. Thankfully, this is not a scenario of what we just saw with the onshore flow and dealing with the coastal low that became Melissa sitting out offshore for days at a time. Well, this time around, we're seeing everything moving, just just a very much more vigorous upper air feature here in play. And you can see that upper low just goes east-west, the whole trough. You can watch that whole trough just lift up and go negative here. You see it right there. And then the upper low just sort of swallows the surface low tomorrow morning, and then slowly but surely gets kicked away out to the northeast. Now, as that trough pulls out, we have another trough. If you look on the western end of this picture, on the left side, we have another trough in the west that's moving eastward. There's also a short wave that is down in the southern part of that flow near Texas. So you can see it here, that 579 cutoff low that is down in South Texas, and that is for tomorrow night, 8 p.m., our deep trough here in the east. That's going to be important with regards to the system that's in the southwest Gulf, and I'm going to come back to that in a moment. I want to widen out so we can see the whole pattern across North America going forward. And it's progressive. That means everything wants to move west to east and keeps on moving. And also the trough, the mean trough wants to be in the eastern part of the United States, or at least attempts to be in the eastern part. So after this deep low pulls out, the reflexive reaction is for a ridge to try and build, but you see there's that little short wave that comes out of Texas and then lifts up through the Carolinas. Keep that in the back of your mind. Trough in the west swings up into the Rockies. That's kicking that eastern system along. And then that gradually swings into the eastern part of the United States for the middle part of next week. Then that pulls out, and here comes another arm with another trough into the east as we go into the long range at around day 11 or 12. And then that trough just sits here in the east right through the 2-week period. So no question, if you have any doubts in your mind, by the way, that the pattern did not change when Hurricane Lorenzo went into Europe, if this doesn't change your mind, nothing will. I mean, the pattern most certainly did change, and changed in a very big way here as we're getting all this activity. And the fact that we've had not only just Melissa, the coastal low that became Tropical Storm Melissa, but now we have this second major, this one being a major system that's impacting us now. And of course, we've got other systems to deal with along the way. So once this low is gone, the original plan was to see weather conditions improve. However, the GFS, the European, a few other models, the Hurricane Center talking about it, and maybe we'll have an update from them at 8 o'clock, although I'm not thinking we're going to hear too much from them on this one as far as any major changes. But the models do seem to want to develop this system to some degree in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico, and with the upper flow in the Gulf states, primarily from some semblance of west to east motion. And we mentioned yesterday how these systems in the southwest Gulf sometimes like to get trapped down there because the upper air westerly winds don't manage to get down there close enough. Well, in this instance, it seems like there should be enough of a push there to bring this system out to the northeast. And that's what the GFS and as I said, the European, the NAM, they all do this. And actually, they bring in what looks like a subtropical or possibly a tropical storm into the Florida Panhandle by early Saturday morning. And because of that next trough coming into the west, this is going to try to move northeastward. So we are, I think, going to see, if this verifies, there will be another round of significant rain for Georgia, Alabama kind of close, at least southern Alabama, but Georgia for sure, South Carolina, North Carolina, and even up into Virginia into this weekend. So that kind of puts the weekend forecast in question. Saturday, I don't think is an issue. Saturday looks fine for much of the east down into North Carolina. But then we're going to bring in at least clouds are going to start moving up. And we'll have to wait and see if this thing winds up getting pulled up to the northeast up the coast. Eventually, that trough coming out of the plains and Rockies is going to want to pull this in toward it. So it's a matter of timing. If it takes a little longer to come out, maybe that waits for that trough to the west to get a little further to the east, we could wind up seeing more of this moisture move further north and maybe a bit more of an intact surface low coming up as well. But the bottom line is, either way, we do have another cold front coming here for Tuesday, and we might see some rain or showers perhaps from this, whatever this feature winds up being, be it tropical or subtropical or maybe some remnant low. Don't know that yet, but we may wind up getting something out of this, particularly along the immediate coast, along about Sunday night or Monday. And then here comes the front for Tuesday, and then on we go with more weather systems, more cold fronts, more chances for rain going forward as we head toward the end of the month, and some colder air masses coming in behind each one. So compared to today, the air mass coming down really is not all that cold, but the next one looks to be a little colder, and the one after that looks to be even colder. So we're making progression here going forward. And by the way, let me also bring up something, and I'm going to show this because it's too funny not to show. And since a few people were talking about it, naturally, the silly season I thought maybe would hold off for a little while, but apparently not. And I didn't look because last night because I didn't think it really mattered either way. But naturally, the GFS in our 336, 348, 360 brought snow up and down the East Coast, except for the immediate coast, but just inland of the coast. So you already know what my opinion is of this sort of stuff. And it's the middle of October, so it's very early to start getting into this. So please refrain from looking at all this silliness that the models do, because we're going to be at this for the next 5 months: November, December, January, February, March. Do we really want to go waste energy every single time we see a snowstorm beyond day 7, let alone day 10, and let alone day 14 and 15? I think the takeaway, the only takeaway that matters here at this point is the fact that we're going to be in a pattern that seems to be favoring chillier air masses to come down, with troughing that wants to be in the east. Anything more specific in terms of a precip action, whatever that may be, that really has to wait until we get into the short range. So let's go back. I want to go back to that system in the southwest Gulf. It does look as if, at least through this evening, that there's been an increase in shower and thunderstorm activity this afternoon and evening, although it does remain rather disorganized. But nonetheless, I do think that something's going to come out of this before it's all said and done. And again, the Hurricane Center hasn't, I doubt that they've updated it this early. Every once in a while, if somebody wants to go out to dinner early, they might update it at 7:30. But so far, the last we've heard from them was from their 2 o'clock their 2 o'clock update, which is they upped it to 50%, both in the 2-day period, the 48-hour period, and in the 5-day period. I wouldn't be surprised if they wind up nudging that up a little higher on this one, given that it looks as if the thunderstorm activity has definitely increased. So, the preparation in terms of the forecast to me is a lot more, in some ways, it's a lot more fun and challenging than the actual day, because now we're just we're tracking everything that we've been talking about for the last 3 or 4 days has finally come to fruition. So we're just going to let it play out, and then we'll set ourselves up for whatever happens, whatever's going to happen over the weekend. But what we can say, at least from the standpoint of weather that's going on right now, we're talking about coastal flooding that's occurring in some areas for Long Island, around in southern New England, southeastern New England. One high tide cycle to worry about, and that's the one that's underway right now. once we're done with that, we don't have any worries for tomorrow. The winds are all going to be strong northwesterly. That blows all the water out, and we're done with that. Wind advisories are up all over the place. I believe they actually put it now far south, just down to Delaware. Let me just check again. And they did put it up for the inland areas. Yeah, they do have wind advisories all the way down into eastern Maryland, where we do have also some coastal flood warnings and coastal flood advisories up. Wind advisories for all of New Jersey, most of eastern and southeastern Pennsylvania, and then on up through the Hudson Valley, through Connecticut, Long Island, goes all the way up the Hudson Valley in through northern New York, Massachusetts, through Vermont, et cetera, et cetera. We still got flash flood watches up in some places as well. So still pretty busy out there this evening in terms of what we're dealing with. But eventually things are going to calm down. It may take a while, but things are going to eventually calm down. So on the chat board with everybody, and I really hope everyone's had a very good day. I actually had day shift today, so I was in the office from 9 to 5 for a change. And usually what I do in situations like that, because I don't like to drive in rush hour, I have a 62-mile drive to get here. So if I drive in rush hour in the morning, it'll take me 3 hours to get here, and I'm just not doing that. And it will also take me 3 hours to get home. So I stop off at my mom's house and have some dinner, and then I wait for rush hour to end. I'm going to wait for the rain to let up a little bit, and then I'll get on the road to Long Island and see what's going on there. Also want to say the chairman, Scott Briller, who's usually number one on the chat board here when the chat board opens up for these live streams, is out again today because he's taking care of his mom. She is doing well. She's feeling a lot better. And we all send Mom and Scott our very best. And Scott messaged me earlier, said that he was going to be here tomorrow. So then we think we'll be back to normal. It's kind of just odd that he's not here. Also, let me remind you that this is probably a good time, if you haven't already, to download my weather app and the meteorologist Joe Chaffee weather app on Google Play or on the App Store. It's absolutely free. It works anywhere. It'll default to your location. So do download it and enjoy it. And for those of you who are Angry Ben fans, my buddy Ben Scott, who does my nycweathernow.com website, be sure to download the Angry Ben app for Android. They call the Angry Weatherman, and that's also absolutely free. So just if you haven't done it already, with all the times I've reminded you, come on, time to download. It doesn't cost you anything. All right. Nick Spalos, welcome. Rain stopped here in Northern Ocean County, now waiting for the wind. That's it. So you've got the back edges now up to about 195 and moving northward. Everything is moving on schedule. The rain shot here with a system like this is a fairly limited amount in terms of time. It's only really a 6-hour round of rain for most areas. In New England, it's going to be longer because of where the low center is, and then the low just stops moving northward. So if you're north of that low center, you're going to be in rain for a much longer period of time. And rainfall amounts up in New England are going to be much higher, maybe on the order of 3, 4, 5 inches in some places. Robert Brown, these negatively tilted troughs, and we've seen enough where this is a trend. Negatively tilted troughs occur from time to time. They're part of the mix. You want to see a strong ridge on either side to really support this. You want an atmosphere that has a lot of amplitude, and under certain circumstances, you can get the trough to swing all the way around. Now, there are cases you could certainly have intense storms where the trough doesn't go negative. You could have a very, very deep, positively tilted trough that produces a fairly strong surface low. It's just sort of oriented in a different direction, in a different way in terms of how the low will appear on the surface. You don't get that complete wraparound. The cyclone will have maybe a bit more of a stretched look to it, but you certainly could wind up with some pretty nasty weather from non-negatively tilted troughs. But some of the bigger storms usually come out of situations like this. where you're dealing with a very, very deep upper low. The trough swings all the way around. You're talking about a lot of wind, strong winds aloft, a lot of rotation. It's all there, and good inflow coming in from the Atlantic, from the Gulf of Mexico. The mix was certainly there in this particular case. And yes, Jason Schaefer, I've been up since the crack of dawn. I wish I could say that I slept till the crack of noon, as the famous Tallulah Bankhead used to say. For those of you who are my age, you would know who she is. This is somebody that goes back, way back into the 20s and 30s and 40s. Famous Broadway actress. As she was a kid, you would wake at the crack of dawn. She would say, "I slept to the crack of noon." So no such luck for me. Chuck Cardillo, the models for the long run are programmed by the same people who could predict cold and snow every winter. Well, it does seem that way, doesn't it? That they have a hand in it. But remember, we don't focus on either one, okay? We don't care we don't care about posts that are out there on the internet predicting cold and snowy winters, because they predict them every single year. So that makes that piece of information useless. Okay, it's not something that you would trade on. Okay, if you were a trader and you were trying to make a buck, buy low, sell high, or sell high and buy back low, you would not really. You might use this piece of information to play against. So just bear that in mind. Nighty night to John Marinelli. You've got a 5 a.m. call tomorrow, so sleep well. And thanks for being here to get you all tired and yawny to put you to sleep. Monet Hebert. I'm losing my mind now, Joe. Why won't you show us this? What am I showing? What am I not showing? I'm missing. I'm running the. I'm running. Oh, then I see you say lots of laughs. You need a snow day. Okay. I guess that was from the snow map that I showed you. Snow lovers don't want snow for the Mid-Atlantic in October. Means below average snowfall for you snow lovers. Well, Anthony Orr, you make a good point, because if you look back, the years that we've seen snow in October have come in years where we've had a developing, or strengthening El Nino or La Nina, and for some reason it sets up a chilly pattern during part of the fall month, the middle part of autumn and into November, and then you get into December and suddenly the pattern just flips, and you've got a trough in the west and a ridge in the east, and you're like, how did that happen? So there is some at least a broad statistical correlation, you might say, with very early snowfalls. I think it's more for October as opposed to November. November is a bit trickier, because you could certainly set up a cold pattern early for a front-end loaded winter in November that lasts into maybe early February, and then you get an early spring type of situation. But we'll see. We'll see. Also Monet Hebert. I'm your go-to guy when it comes to how the weather will go for the week. Sexy voice, me? I don't think so. But thank you. I take that as a huge compliment. Timothy Veltman, nice to see you on board tonight. You're getting that rain all the way up to upstate New York as well. Also good to see Jason Barry here. Tim Smart is here. Nice to see you by your pseudonym, which I'm not going to repeat. Okay. Why don't you just go back to what it was, which was Tim Smart. Ruru 25 on board, as well as one of our statisticians, Anthony Orr. I don't know what's going to happen as far as getting close to Halloween for anything specific there, Daniel Fitzsimmons. But I will say that the pattern is certainly active enough as we go forward that we are probably going to wind up seeing more weather systems in the next couple of weeks. And I think first front and center is going to be that system in the southwestern Gulf. I think that has I was looking at the upper air. We looked at it yesterday. and it looked to me as if wind shear wasn't going to be too big of a problem, and that conditions were going to be at least somewhat conducive for that to develop into a tropical depression or a subtropical depression or something or another. Okay, I have no idea. Let me just scrub Keela Fortnight. Nice to see you here tonight. Just so you know, I really don't make any mental connection between the names that the Weather Channel gives for storms in my memory. So, and this goes for everybody. Most of you know this. So, if you want to talk about a past storm, I would rather you give me some sort of dates because I don't know. Um, the only one that kind of sticks in my head for a name is Nemo, because that was that not the the January blizzard of 16, and one of the guys that I work with, usually brings that storm up from time to time, so that sticks in my mind. But I just don't, I don't make the connection with regards to the names that the Weather Channel gives these things. It's kind of silly, really. It really is, but that's their business and that's what they do, and it calls attention to them and it works for them. It's not something that works for me. So yeah, so anybody, if you want to talk about past storms, uh, the dates would help me a whole lot better to remember, and then I can go look them up. Joyce Mack, when are the winds going to die down? I don't want another 8 months of these gusty wind cycles. Well, up and down the New Jersey shore right now, we're certainly seeing some of those strong gusts, and now you're going to wait for the wind shift to go around, which is coming shortly. And when that happens, everybody's winds are going to pick up during the overnight. So it's going to stay windy through Thursday night, and the winds are still going to be on the breezy side for at least part of Friday. So we may have to wait until Friday night, late Friday or Friday night, for the winds to really drop off. So just going to have to be patient from that standpoint. All right, I'm going to give one more check to the Hurricane Center to see if they've updated it. And they have. So here we go. So as advertised, I predicted that they would nudge it up a little bit, and they have to 60% now formation in the next 48 hours and 60% over the next 5 days. So what they say is that a broad area of low pressure, the Bay of Campeche, shower and thunderstorm activity has increased during the past several hours. The system is forecast to move north and then northeast across the western and central Gulf during the next couple of days, and it could become a tropical or a subtropical cyclone in that time. Blah, blah, blah. And an Air Force reconnaissance aircraft is scheduled to investigate this system Thursday afternoon if necessary. So they are certainly, they've got their eye on this for sure as far as the potential for tropical cyclone development. All right, so I'm going to say we're going to put an end to it at this point, but let me just very quickly, and there's a few of you on here who are certainly weather geeky enough, and you don't even have to be weather geeky. I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm as geeky as the next person when it comes to weather stuff. But for those of you who are really interested, I do have my subscription platform. It's just $2 a month, and that $2, by the way, goes a long way to help support my app, the live streams, and everything else that I have, my websites. And I'm going to be doing this full time starting November 5th, 16th. It'll be all online all the time, so I got to eat. Okay, so it's my subscription platform on Patreon. You get extra videos on there. You can message me anytime, and I do try to respond in a timely fashion. So consider it. I put the link up there on the chat board. And also, for those of you, this is an easy way to support what I'm doing. I want to thank whoever it was that bought a catalytic converter the other day on my Amazon link. Thank you very much. But for those of you who do shop on Amazon, if you use my Amazon link that I just put up on the chat, or it's on the descriptor to this video, we are a participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for us to earn fees by linking to Amazon.com and its affiliated sites. So if you are shopping on Amazon and you go through that link, it doesn't cost you anything extra, and Amazon will throw me a little bit of coin so that I can go buy a couple of fishing lures and maybe get a coffee or two. So I appreciate those of you who have done that in the past, and please consider using that. It's an easy way to support my free app. It keeps ads on there to a minimum, and it doesn't cost you one extra dime. So weather in 5 tomorrow mornings. Be sure to be ready for that. Be sure you download the meteorologist Joe Chaffee weather app for free on Google Play or on the App Store, and the Angry Weatherman app for Google Play on my buddy Ben Scott, keeping in charge of that for weather in and around New York City. As I said, weather in 5 tomorrow morning, website posts throughout the day, and of course we'll have our live stream tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Eastern time. And if he's over his horrible head cold, we'll bring Joe Rayo on as well. Okay, have a great night, everybody. Thanks again for being here. Good night.